Hello, everyone. Hope you're well. Hope you had a good week. My week's not been too bad. Thank God for that. Although Monday, I had a flat tyre at the very beginning of Monday morning to deal with. Ended up costing me two brand new tyres for the back, but that's life. Get on for it. Crack on. Sorry about earlier, the live. I've got problems with my internet. It keeps dropping, so it was cancelling the stream. So second time lucky. Let's go for it. Hi, Ched. Thanks for tuning in again. Thank you. Me top person there following me. So today what we're going to do is go through quoting windows for window cleaning. So what we're going to cover would be that later. Is basically why I think it's always a good idea to quote in person and to focus on the state of the windows as opposed to how many windows there are. Obviously, that's important. Find potentially hard to reach windows, so you know you're going to deal with them. Do you price per window or do you go for an hourly rate? What way you do it? Explain to the customer how you operate, how you work. Explain as well, or ask them if they've ever had their windows cleaned or seen it houses cleaned with the water-fed pole system before, because you may find you're going to have to explain that, and why I definitely always send a quote, even if I'm there face-to-face with them. So, yeah, this is how I quote for window cleaning. How everyone else does it is going to be different, and you just try things, you learn stuff, you're always thinking a pattern in your head. Eventually it'll just come naturally, but for window cleaning, I've definitely found, even though I've been going for over 5 years, I've found it the hardest thing to do. You'll never get it 100% spot on every single time. Sometimes it'll be right, sometimes it'll be wrong, but as long as you even out in the middle and you keep your fingers on the pulse so you can adjust your methods, you'll get there in the end. So moving on then to the first thing I'm going to talk about is why I think you should always quote in person. Now, when you quote in person, I don't mean you have to be face-to-face with the customer. So what we tend to do is, because I've got busier now, but when you first start, it's easier to arrange a time to go at the customer's convenience and meet them. But the busier you get with customers, the more harder you'll find that, because you're constantly working and you can't drive to different areas and fit it in. So you may find to go out in the evenings could be a good time to do that. But as you get more packed, you do a full day work and you won't have time for the evenings because you're doing all your invoicing. But luckily for me, I work with my wife and my kids. So my wife tends to go out and she'll deal with the quotes, so allowing me and my kids to do the working. But obviously, if we get a walk up or something like that, we'll then deal with it. But the reason why we go in person, even if the customer's not in, they're at work, they may be happy for you to come round and they'll just say, we'll leave all the gates unlocked, feel free to come and have a look. I'd still go and do it in person. Don't ask for information. Because when I first started, I sat in my own house and I was arguing with my wife over how many windows we actually owned. And when we walked around and counted them up, we were both wrong. So don't rely on people to tell you how many windows there are, because I can't even do my own house. And I've been living in it for 6 years as well. So yeah, go in person so you can count how many windows there are and how many doors, what sizes they are, whether they're leaded, and all these other little things that you get in there. And I just find it easier. Plus, while you're walking around, you'll start to realise whether it's easy access to get all the way around the property, or you're going to have to go a specific way in, even down to you may be only limited to where you can park your van. And all these sort of things could add on how long something's going to take. So that's why I definitely always go in person, as opposed to relying on photos, Google Maps and stuff like that. Yeah, people always forget doors, Ched. French doors, or tell you they've got a patio door, bifold doors. Bifold doors as well come in a range of different sizes. And I'm in the UK, so I find there's no really standard sized window. They're all different. So moving on, talking about windows though, is to look at the state of the actual windows. Like when you're first starting, your mind is racing all the time and you're trying to look like you're confident as well when you're feeling a bit nervous to do a quote. So you're running around and you're just focusing on how many windows there are and whether your quote is too high. And because you really want the job, you tend to probably go low, which is what I did from the start. And that's my biggest mistake I made. And yeah, it takes you a while to get the confidence to address that after a while, but you do learn the hard way are the best lessons. So it's good to make mistakes. That's how you learn. So rather than counting, like I said, on how many windows there are and the sizes, obviously you need to think of that. I'd also pause to look at how dirty the window is. Because sometimes I turn up because you see stuff on YouTube and that where everyone says, right, first cleans charge double the price. But I've gone to what would be my first clean, and rather than charging them, I'm glad I'm not the only one, Ched. Rather than, sorry, I lost focus where I was now. Rather than focusing, like I said, on the windows, the sizes, and thinking because it's a first clean, I'm automatically charging double. It'd be horrendous if I went to a house where they used to have a window cleaner and he'd been cleaning them for years, and whatever reason, through illness or something, he couldn't do it anymore. Then I've asked you to come round and I'm going to go charging double because in my eyes, it's a first clean. Sometimes I go to a house that haven't been cleaned for a while and the windows aren't actually that bad, so I don't charge a double or first clean. I just charge it as a normal maintenance clean because I want to get them in the bag, for example. But again, through trial and error, you'll work out when to charge a bit more or class it as a first clean, so to speak. And you'll only get that through experience. So yeah, it's easy to get carried away with how many windows there are, what sizes, but do take on board the state of the windows. And also you might have to come across when people say, do you do the frames? Will you get them white? If the whole thing's really, really grey and really old and covered in cement, obviously you're going to have to say, well, I can do that, but it's going to cost a lot of money because it's got this, this, and this. And you might find they don't really mean that. They just mean, are you going to clean it? In which case you'll then class it as a maintenance clean. But obviously it gives you the time then to explain you're not going to get the lumps of cement off, for example, or get all the grey off, and weigh that one up. Again, doing these horrible builders cleans is where you're going to gain experience if you've got the time to do these. I'd go and do these horrible jobs because you'll start timing yourself, finding out the tricks, and then knowing where your price point is right for you. Everyone's different at the end of the day. Yep, Jed, it is definitely good to manage customer expectations. So always quote in person. And if they're there, it's a prime time to just chit chat, get to know each other, break the ice, so to speak. And then that way you can manage what their expectations are because you're gently asking questions and you'll learn it through time, what sort of questions to go for and from their responses. Sometimes someone said something, we say something else and we all get confused. So it gives you that time to get to know each other, hopefully, till you get onto the same song sheet, so to speak. Okay, another thing to do is when you're looking around is make note of the hard or potentially hard to reach windows. The reason why you need to do this is because if, again, you need to get a ladder. Now, I am now water-fed pole. I do a couple of traditional, but not a lot anymore. But there's still a lot of houses I go to with windows where I'm going to get my big triple extension ladder, although not fully extended. And I may have to lean that up against something to go up my ladder. And then from the ladder, use my water-fed pole to reach the window because it's going to be less pressure on my arms. It's just easier and I can actually see what I'm doing to check whether it's clean or not. And then you may have a couple of windows where it requires a ladder, for example, or your step ladder. So you've also got to plan your route. How are you going to get it off your van? Are you going to have to hold your ladder at awkward angles to get underneath washing lines, archways? So this is all stuff to bring in because it's all going to add time. So therefore you're going to have to add or account for that on your quote. And again, through practice, you'll get this. The other thing with hard to reach windows is if you're working with other people, like I work with my children, you may know certain people can do certain windows or can't. So you can sort of plan ahead. Now, the interesting bit will be this one. Do you price per window or an hourly rate? Now, this is really hard because when you first start, you don't know how long a certain house will take you. So you don't know how to charge for an hourly rate. So I went price per window and I've stuck with that. Although now I'm starting, or I do on most cases, getting a rough idea of how long it should take me. So I kind of use a method of the two. But I find pricing per window really is my method, works best, and I tend to stick with that. Well, you're going to have to do a combination of the two. So you can price per window. But like we said, if there's hard areas for access or you need ladders, then you need to add money on top of that for those reasons. And then as you're quoting along, winning quotes, losing quotes, you're going to adjust your pricing structure. When I first started, I'm not embarrassed by saying it because I'm an ex-squaddy. So I just laughed and said, £1 per window or door is easier for me to count and do the maths. And yeah, that's way too cheap. And also because I was starting, you're not as quick as you need to be. You're slower because you're trying to get that confidence of walking away from a job that it's done right. So everything's slower and takes you longer. So you can't really gauge how long it should take you. And then when you work that out and £1 a window and you look at what you've just earned as opposed to an hourly rate, it's horrendous. And you know something's got to change. You've either got to put your price up or speed up. Most of the time when you're starting, it's both. But after a couple of years, you'll get into a rhythm of things and you'll kind of like be there. So always gauge it as you're going along. Keep your finger on the pulse, so to speak, and don't be scared to adjust your prices. But if you're adjusting your prices on your new quotes, just remember your older customers, don't leave them at £1 a window. You're going to have to start nudging them up. And if you just generally 9 times out of 10, tell the truth, explain why, and people will get it. Especially if you're doing a good job, they'll stand by you. So yeah, I price per window, and basically talking of prices, I put my prices up basically £1 on top of everything every 2 years. So I'll have whatever it is per window, and then in me I'd think plus £1 and so on. And just keep track of things. Some houses, like I said, take quicker than others. So it's up to you how you manage all that. But yeah, some people go hourly rate. Don't be scared to charge in your head. Think of an hourly rate to go for is like £30 an hour. It doesn't mean to say you're going to clean a whole house for an hour, but you've got to drive in between houses. You're going to get held up talking. You may have to open and close gates. I've never found a gate where you just open it and it opens easily. They've always got dodgy little ways of lifting stuff up or pushing against a post to open and close. So that takes you time. And if access is hard, it's all going to add on time. And plus, you're not earning £30 an hour. It costs you a lot of money to put fuel in your van. You've got insurance for your van, your kit, your public liability, all that kind of stuff. Things go wrong. Your van needs servicing. Tyres, like me on Monday, that's all wear and tear. It all comes out of that. So even if you are earning an hourly rate of £30 an hour, your customers won't think, because some people watch you and time you, understand what comes out of that money to keep you going. There are running costs just to run your business, let alone have enough left over you to pay your bills, your mortgage, and so on, and to feed yourself. So you've got to think of that and keep your eye on it, because it does change, especially like now, the cost of living going up stupidly high. I've had to put my prices up by £1 again for that, but it kind of fell right for every 2 years. And to be honest, a lot of my customers have had a long time because you do a good job. I'm surprised you didn't put it up earlier. In fact, most of them say you're the only person who hasn't put his prices up. So when you get comments like that, time to start thinking, really. And yeah, I'm glad I did it. So the other thing you're going to have to go through is maybe explain how you operate. So while you're doing your quote, I'll also explain to them that I send a text message to them the evening before I'm coming round to do a clean. And the reason why I do it is so people can leave gates unlocked for me. I'll also explain to them if they want me to close the gate a certain way, a bolt or a padlock to put on, just let me know and I'll do that too. I'll also tell them when the clean is finished, they'll receive another text straight away, and in there will be a link to their invoice, and then basically they can pay. And I go through the different payment methods. You all might be different, but obviously I use Go Cardless. I have a card reader exactly the same as you get in the shops, because it's got a multi-SIM in it, so it uses the strongest network at the time. Use Stripe but I just don't say it's Stripe. I just tell them on the invoice there's a pay now button and it guides you through payment methods with a card. I also then explain to them there's a little box to tick underneath it. Don't tick it without reading. It's not terms and conditions. They're ticking for automatic payments. I then explain what that means, that after that, every time I send an invoice, it'll automatically take payments out of their bank so they don't have to pay it themselves if they wish, which is similar basically to go cardless. I accept check, I accept cash, and they're basically my payment methods. I try and cover everything because I find it hard to force people down a certain route because some people do not like internet banking, or BACS is the other one that's on the bottom of my invoice. Tell them that. Some people don't like it, don't trust it, so they prefer other methods. And especially when I was starting, I didn't want to lose customers. I wanted to gain customers. So yeah, I just offer all them, tell them to pick the one they prefer, and I ask for payment to be made within 7 days. I think that's quite reasonable. And obviously I know people forget and get caught up in life. So that's why I will send the odd text reminder during the week. So yeah, explain to them how you operate, how things go, allows them to ask questions. Again, I tell them I work as a 3, so there's myself, my son and my daughter. So it'll be 3 of us. I like to say that because if they don't know that many people are turning up, last thing I want is someone petrified. The good thing for me, because we're a family-run business, they love it, especially when my wife is coming out and my other 2 younger kids on the big jobs. Yeah, it's not intimidating. They like it quite a lot. The other question I ask them as well during the quote is ask them basically, have they ever had their windows cleaned with the water-fed pole system before, or seen anyone else having windows cleaned that way? It's quite common now where a lot of people say, yeah, our old window cleaner used to use that, so they understand how it works. But if they haven't, that's now your cue to explain what you use, how you use it, but you don't want to overpower them with too much information. I always find this is the main thing really to tell them is the windows will be left wet. You won't dry them off or use a squeegee. And just to tell them just to leave them alone. Don't come out and try and wipe them down because it will cause smears. Just trust the water and then let it dry naturally, and then go and have a look. And if there's any problems, to let you just get in touch with you. I always tell people to get in touch back to me. I'm not afraid if someone has a complaint. I'd rather know about it, because when I know something's wrong, I can come and have a look as soon as possible. So I tend to get there as soon as I can, because I want to trace up where these marks are and work out where they're from. Is it from a vent or something like that? Because I work with me family, we decided who cleaned that window. So therefore it's like a teaching point for future. It could even be me, and every window in a house can behave differently. And you might work out it's down to an old seal or something like that. So I always tell them, tell me you're not happy, you're not going to stay with me. I want you to be happy because I want regular work, regular customer. So again, you explain all that. And yeah, give them a chance to show off your kit as well, so they can see you've invested a lot of money into this window cleaning stuff. And people who haven't seen it before are generally really interested, and sort of like want to know what's going on. And we'll ask stuff like, will it harm my plants? So you can tell them, no, it's totally fine, and reassure them. So going on to sending a quote. Okay, even when they're in front of me and I'm talking, I'm giving them a quote, I'll always tell them I will send a quote, because what I use is squeegee. And then on squeegee, if I can get to it, just bear with me. I've got some things in the way. Right, if I click on features, see it drops down all this. And if you already don't use squeegee, highly recommend it. I'll click on this quoting one. And then basically it'll come to a screen where you can fill in information for a quote. You can brand it to your liking, so to speak. It's got limits, but you can put your logo on. And then you're going to track down all the customers' information for yourself. And then if they accept or decline it, you're going to instantly know through the squeegee app whether your customer or potential customer has accepted the quote or declined it. So you know to move forward, or after a week, maybe chase it up for a little bit, because I don't want people to feel pressured on the spot to accept the quote. In fact, I tell them to go and get other quotes as well and speak it through the other half. Don't feel pressured. Um, and there's like a list of your quotes here so you can keep track of everything. So you've got something to refer to. So I find Squeegee really good. So while I'm walking around with the customer, I'm asking for the name, the phone number. I'm already pre-filling all that information. And then I've got the quote written down, because normally just quoting windows can be quite, after you've done it a few times, straightforward. But you could always just make notes and just tell them you'll send a quote in the evening. You can always go back home and then go through it again. Have a bit more think of it so you're not under pressure as well. So you like regain control. Sometimes though, you get customers come out, they'll see you, they'll walk up to you. Can you come and quote this house once you've finished theirs? And you'll feel rushed. So try and slow yourself down. So again, when you go there, take your time, look at the state of the windows. Don't get too excited with grabbing a new customer, how much they are, and try and think it through. And then obviously try and go through your set routine of how you quote so the customer gets information as opposed to starts asking or doesn't get it and giving you loads of questions, and then they feel they're getting a bad deal. And then I'll say I'll always send a quote, because I find the ones that grab you there and then and want you to clean it right now tend to be the ones that just want a one-off, and you'll hate that. When you first start, you get a lot of one-offs, but when you start packing your round out with regular customers, that will sort of tail off for you, especially when people know you're busy. Yeah, and that's basically how I quote for windows. I still find it really, really hard. You don't always get it 100% right, but as long as you're close, you're going to speed up in time. So sometimes that saves your neck. But again, certain times of the year, bizarrely, we've found in the winter, we clean windows a lot quicker than in the summer, because I find everything tends to be a bit more wetter. More often with the rain, the windows stay cleaner for longer. In the summer, you're going to get pollen stuck on the glass, which is hard to get off. Loads of spiders, that sort of thing, especially now. There's loads of spiders out, and September, October is a spider mating season, so there's cobwebs everywhere. And then in the countryside, you've got them harvesting the fields, all these sort of things. So summer, everything takes longer. Winter, I find, is a lot quicker, especially if you're near somewhere where there's seagulls. That's horrible. Seagull poop everywhere, baked on in the sun. Winter, they've buggered off and there's hardly anything there. So yeah, I find it quicker in the winter. So through the year, it kind of evens itself out. So it helps it out being easy to clean in the winter because you've got your lack of light. Summer, everything takes longer, but you've got longer light. So it balances out. Yep, good point there, Ched. Ched's here saying he has a base price to cover up setting up and packing up, plus he charges per window, whether it's regular size or large. I have thought of that, but when I first started, I just thought setting up and packing away is my problem, so it's something I practice. And with three of us, we've got a good routine of unpacking and packing up. But yeah, it does take longer than what you think, especially like I said, some houses, your van might have to park 30 meters further down the road rather than outside. Something else worth taking a note in is the area. So if you're just having a drink, not doing that, but I am. Oh, that's nice. I've been looking forward to that all day. Cheers, Type Marker. Thanks so much. Is sometimes when you're parking up and you notice there's a school nearby, you should start thinking, hang on a minute, I definitely do not want to come down here when it's school run time, because you'll find getting into that house and getting away from that house and the road surrounding it a nightmare. So you'll be aware of it and know certain times of the day, that's the time you need to get there. So again, if you keep your work tightly packed in areas on your rounds, it gives you that freedom to maybe go do a couple of roads down there, clean, come back to the one near the school, for example, rather than driving half a county to do it, which is what I was like at the beginning. And I suppose we all like that when we first start. But yeah. The other thing with quoting I find, and I'm still getting it now with some customers, because I changed my schedule, I had to tell like over 500 people, schedule's changed, your next clean's going to be here. But obviously, from telling them that I've got a specific time, say it could be 8 weeks, anything can happen between now and 8 weeks' time. Last week, my electric reels packed up. I had to get them fixed. It cost me a couple of days. I lost the tyres this Monday, so that's already 3 days the schedule's moved across. So that person that's 8 weeks could realistically end up being 9 with all the weather and other bad luck you get. So again, that's why I tell them, if you're going to write the date down on the calendar, that may move. You get bank holidays, I get problems with my van, kit needs changing, and it knocks me back and I don't catch up. But I'll always send a text the evening before I'm due round. So if I don't turn up on the day, that's because I've had a problem. And by all means, before the date you've got me written down the calendar, ask me when am I next due round, because chances are some timings have slipped. And obviously, people's lives as well, hospital appointments flare up. So I always tell them, just ask, because if it's going to clash with something, at least you know whether I can move stuff around, or it might have just happened naturally as well. That's another kind of a little bit of a problem with between me and the customers. No matter how many times I say it, they don't always see it that way or understand it, because not everybody just doesn't worry about me. They know I will turn up, and if I'm later than 4 weeks, they know I'm still going to turn up. There's a reason why I'm later than 4 weeks, not because I couldn't be asked. And again, I know some people just write things on calendars, and that's what they go by. Yep. Again, everyone's different, but yeah, it's the time you take. So again, if you know your hourly rate, let's say £30 an hour, you know you're packing up time, packing away time. I suppose allowing 5 minutes for a bit of chit chat with some customers, because some of them are on their own, don't see many people. Offer you a cup of tea. So while they're making a cup of tea, you can be cleaning, and it's nice to have a chat with someone sometimes, especially when they don't see a lot of people. So they enjoy the company. And again, through that, sometimes nice for you because you're racing through jobs, but you do have to take certain customers in account, I would say. But for me, most people are at work. So the odd customer where I chat, my kids hate it, I do chat a bit. But I find it's good customer relation, and sometimes through chatting, they then ask you about other add-on services you do, for example, and would rather you do these jobs than perhaps someone else did before. So you gain stuff that way. But yeah, it is all about time. And it is hard to exactly say how long it'll take you to clean a property unless you've cleaned it a few times. So you've got a good gauge to go by, but it does vary on the time of year. Or like I say, if you're rural, you've got the fields and things to work around. Speaking of that, for example, it's not a good idea to turn up to someone's house with a combine harvester driving by and expect to jump out your van and clean it. That's why I always knock on the door and I say, look, I've just noticed they're working in the fields. Would you still like me to clean your windows, or would you like me to come back later? Hang on a sec. Okay, it's all right. So sometimes you're going to lose time there by knocking on doors and asking people questions, but it could save a lot of hassle. If they're not in, I'll always send a message, do a couple of other houses, and perhaps come back once I've got the answer. Hopefully that's all been of some value for you. Just another little tip. Why not subscribe to my channel if you already haven't? Be a great help. And also, if you've got any questions, just put a Q and a colon, a capital Q. It's easier for me to then find it in the comments, or stick it in the live chat, but you can stick it in the comments below when the video goes back to being a replay, and then I'll get back to you. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. That'll do. Unless you've got any more questions, I'll just hang on for a little sec, see if there's any more. Press the wrong button. Strongbow, love it. Thanks, Jed. I find it means a lot to find other people have similar things to me. It's great to know you're not the only one. We often do feel like that, and it's nice to know when someone else has similar problems because it makes you realize you ain't the only one and what you're doing is right. I've always just focused on the job and worked backwards from doing a good job and just live and learn. And if you're just honest with your customer as well, I mean, I've had customers tell me before, Rob, I've been paying these prices back in 1980. You need to put them up. So when someone says that, yeah, it's a good indicator to get your prices right and what a difference it does make. Okay, everyone. Cheers, Ched. Hope you all have a nice bank holiday as well. I used to work bank holidays and it was only last year we stopped doing that. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks very much. Thanks for tuning